It's always
Zemblanity.
that's what.
All
Yeah,
right.
it doesn't matter. You can
So
call
we're
me
running
Chunky,
late.
Avocado, or Zemblanity. I'll answer to both.
Cool.
Okay. So we're live. So we're just laying everything out. How are we doing, ISO buddies? Everybody good? I see Wally's already here, ready to go. Wally is Supreme Gecko. Claire, how are you?
I just finished my teaching job right on time, so I'm good. I'm good.
Right on time. I noticed that like 2 minutes till. I was like, oh God, where's Claire? This is going to be awkward with no co-hosts. I think my mouth could pull it off, but... And then we have Zemblanity kind of. She's going to be just kind of watching, waiting in the wings, I guess. So moderating. So mind your manners, everybody. Or I'll get the PM and you're out of here.
Just
today,
good guys.
Everybody's good. I'm not worried about it. We're all friends. So today we are talking with Rachel from Pet Pedes and Pods.com. You may know her from the internet. You may know her from shows. She's been in the hobby for a little while, and really is one of those people that has a really great care for her collection. A lot of thought goes into it, what she has and how she keeps them. So let's bring her in and see how she's doing from the green room. Boom. Rachel, welcome to ISO Buddies.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey.
It's going well. Oh, here we go. We've got some more people here.
It is great to have you here, Rachel. Thank you for being our first interview.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me.
That's right. It's our inaugural. This is not inaugural. This is our big one. We'll see. This is make or break.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure.
We're good.
So I think just out of nerves, I'm going to jump right into our questions for you, Rachel. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? All right. So still loving the banner. Love it. I've got to get a banner or something made.
This is blocking everything behind me. So, you know.
Yeah, that's good, though. That's good. I have so much crap behind me. It's ridiculous. So if you could just, for us and our viewers, give us a basic rundown of what bioactivity is, what it does. Basic. Yeah, basically.
So for me, I'm going to start with kind of what the goals are for bioactive setup. So the main goal is having a healthy environment for the main inhabitant that's going to go in it, right? And then two, second goal is having something that's easy for you as the keeper to maintain. And then a lot of people have a third goal with bioactive setups, which is to have a display piece. But that's actually not totally necessary. And so for me, for what bioactive actually is, as far as, you know, what I do, what I set up, what I help other people set up, is really you have your main inhabitant that lives in the enclosure, and then you have your cleanup crew of isopods and springtails, and sometimes, you know, if you've got like desert setups, sometimes people use beetles, and then whatever is necessary to sustain that cleanup crew. And at that point, you have at the most basic level. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. At that point, you have at the most basic level, you have a bioactive setup. And the reason that I kind of want to stress that, you know, that's kind of the basic level is because bioactive setups can be as simple or as complicated as you want them to be. You know, I have a lot of people at shows come up and say things like, you know, I'm really interested in doing bioactive, but I kill plants, or it just seems really super overwhelming and complicated to do, or I've got an animal in an enclosure that I'm going to have to upgrade them in a year or so, and I just don't want to put the investment into this, you know, thing that's not their forever home. And so the nice thing about bioactive is you can really make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. It can be as simple as, you know, adding what you need to get a cleanup crew in there, or it can be, you know, the big display piece that everybody thinks about when they think about bioactive, with all the live plants and the substrate layers and everything like that. So there you go.
I'm trying to figure out this issue with the feedback.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of noise.
Yeah, are you getting that too, Claire? Sorry, this is the one problem with live chat.
Yeah, a little bit. What I've found when I'm teaching groups is if we're all on mute, except for the person talking, then usually that helps.
All right, I muted Zemblanity, so or Chunky Avocado, so it won't be coming from her anyway. I tried to mute everybody in order. See, yeah, I muted everybody but Rachel, and now it's not a problem. So good. So you would say then that it's definitely beneficial to everybody involved: the animals, the cleanup crew, the owners. Yeah,
that's the idea.
Okay, awesome. And then, how important do you think it is to the hobby as a whole, like the hobby of keeping microclimates? You know, we're gods to our creatures here, basically. So,
yeah, I think it is important. And what's interesting about it, because you mentioned as the hobby as a whole, and it's interesting because Bioactive is really, it's kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of different hobbies. Because you do have, you have the reptile and amphibian hobby, you have, the plant hobby, you have the terrarium hobby, you have the invertebrate hobby. So it's kind of neat because it all kind of comes together into this one thing that just, works beautifully together. So I think it is important because it does give, a healthier, more naturalistic setup than you can achieve with other things for the animal. It makes your life a lot easier because nobody likes cleaning up poop, right?
100%.
So it's just beneficial all the way around. And that's not to say that you can't have, perfectly happy and healthy animals in other setups, but I think that it is definitely a really good option if it's something that you want to go with.
Good. Perfect. I think that's exactly what I was thinking. I like the concept of this being like a groundwork for a lot of different hobbies. Yeah. So this is like the mortar that can hold a lot of hobbies together, kind of.
Exactly.
Set up on.
I have a lot of people ask me, because I'll kind of, say, I breed these bugs, and well, where do you distribute them? And I say, well, I go to reptile shows, and people are just very confused. And they say, well, because there's so much overlap in the hobbies, because there's the people that enjoy collecting them, there's the people that enjoy using them for the bioactive setups. There's a ton of overlap.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think Claire had the next question set up for you. Here we go. Hold on.
I do. So for people who are still on the fence about going bioactive, how would you persuade them to just jump in and do it?
Well, I'm going to go back to the point that I made earlier, which is it doesn't have to be complicated. We do get a lot of people at the shows that, are just very overwhelmed and find it very daunting. And so if you're thinking about it and you're on the fence about it, figure out if you have, and I'm going to say one of your animals, because we all know reptile people have a lot of different animals. Get one of your animals that is going to be, thank you, Wally. One of your animals is going to be easy to convert over to bioactive, and do something simple. It doesn't have to be, a full display. You don't even have to get live plants in there if that's something that is, if that's a little overwhelming for you, if you've got a black thumb or whatever. Though I will say it is much easier to grow live plants in a terrarium or a vivarium setup if that's something you're interested in doing. But yeah, get one of your animals converted over, see how you like it. I think it's going to be a lot easier for you. I think you're going to be a lot happier with it. And then just kind of go from there.
Yeah, that sounds actually a little bit like kind of how I've done it with my lizard. We started with the naturalistic substrate. Now we've got some cleanup fruit critters in there, and we've played with potted plants, but then he digs in them and they get unhappy. So that's the next step, is figuring out how to do that so I can keep all the good lizard behaviors and have plants.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I have two. I have a crested gecko and I have a box turtle, and I always use them as examples. So my crested gecko, she's in like a display bioactive enclosure, and then my box turtle, he digs everything up just on a daily basis. You can't have any live plants in there. I've even recommended to people to try putting potted plants in there, but he destroys it just like your lizard does. He's the very utilitarian.
With the lizard, we actually went from a more sterile kind of substrate back into a dig box and other things, because he killed it was a euphorbia cactus, like a rare plant, and he decided he was going to brumate in it, and he started sleeping in it, and then the cactus got unhappy.
Yeah, that's.
I don't hold it against him at all. but that's what happened. So I know what I've got for my lizard and my setup, but what would you recommend? What's the best cleanup crew overall, and why?
So, what cleanup crew you're going to pick is really going to depend on what you're using them for. But I will say the number one cleanup crew that I recommend, other than springtails in general, are the Prunosis. So if you, a lot of people know them as the powder orange, the powder blue. I think Josh is putting some up on the screen here. Yeah, the powder oranges. There's some other color morphs too, but those are the two that a lot of people know. They reproduce really quickly, so you can get them established in big setups quickly. They're soft bodied, so if you're using them in with something like frogs or something like that, if they eat them every now and then, it's not a concern. And they can tolerate pretty much any range of environment that you put them in. I mean, I have people that use them in bioactive bearded dragon enclosures, which are hot and dry, and then I have people that use them in with dart frogs, which is like 100% humidity. So they're a very versatile species. That is definitely one of the number one species that I recommend for people, especially people just starting out that don't necessarily know a whole lot about isopods, because they are really easy to keep.
Josh.
I'm
just going to put up a couple now, so you can talk about them and their benefits maybe.
So these are the Giant Canyon isopods. These guys are really great for arid setups. So if you do have a drier environment, they're real good at burrowing. They can find, any moisture that you have in there. You do just have to make sure that you maintain something moist for them at all times, because they can't dry out entirely. But those guys are great for the arid setup. So if you've got like a bearded dragon or leopard gecko, stuff like that, those guys are good.
Yeah. Mine's a desert lizard, and I have giant canyons that live under his water bowl.
Yeah. Do you find that they do a good job cleaning up after him also?
Yes and no. I mean, I also added some buffalo beetles, the lesser mealworm, and their larvae, and I've noticed more because his bathroom spots are on the drier side. I think the beetles are doing a better job than the isopods were. And he will also hunt them down and eat them if they're out too much while he's out. So if they decide that they don't want to be nocturnal, they're taking a risk with their lives.
Yeah, and that's definitely something, that's a good point to bring up. That's something that you really have to be mindful of when you're setting up the bioactives is, some of your cleanup crew is probably going to get eaten, and that's okay. If you can get them established in your setup before your animal moves in, that's ideal. But I would always recommend keeping like a side culture in like a 6-quart bin or something of whatever you're using, just in case, you lose your culture in your bioactive. I see we're looking at some Cubaris marina, which are just a really nice little classic isopod. Very cute. They're good in the high humidity setups. And they're little, so you can use them with a lot of different things without them getting eaten too much.
We got a question, a pertinent question coming in here. Here we go.
So the powders are really good for other as another arid cleanup crew. So I would recommend those guys or the Giant Canyons for that. Otherwise, you'd be looking at, like Claire was saying, beetles, things like that for your, if it's a truly dry environment.
Yeah, I did have some dubias that escaped being eaten and grew too big to be eaten, and they were the cleanup crew for a while. I'm not big on having large roaches hanging out anywhere in my house, so they were traded off.
Yes. Yeah, we don't keep any roaches here because my husband thinks that they are creepy. And considering the fact that I just have, walls of bugs in the house, I think that's perfectly reasonable.
I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Yeah, I have some dubia nymphs, but I try to get them fed off before they grow too big, because that's not, I don't know, they get monstrous, honestly. I feel like they get really big.
Yeah.
For American purposes, like we're used to the little guys that are the wild ones here, or the indigenous, but these guys are like, what do you think, like 2-3 inches? The adults?
Yeah.
No,
You
is
might
that too
be
crazy?
exaggerating a little bit, Josh.
I mean, they're like this big. No, they're not.
They get big.
Yeah, that's how I see them when I wake up in my nightmares.
They're always bigger when you wake up from your nightmare.
Yeah, you're like, why is that in my house?
So I can see the chat. I'm laughing at the comment. My springtails live under my frog's water bowl, and they get mad, change the water, and clean the dish. It's the same way in my box turtle setup. All the springtails are always under the water dish when I gotta dump it, and they're just everywhere.
Isn't that what they tend to poop too? The reptiles tend to poop by their water, in their water.
In their water, yeah. Usually immediately after you've changed it.
They just wait, like, oh, thanks.
It's fresh.
Thanks so
I'm gonna
much.
go poop in it. Yeah. Almost always.
We need to invent. Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of messes in water, Josh, are you ready for the next question? Because it's a pretty good segue.
Yeah, that is a good segue. I was going to think of something else. I was going to say we need to invent a reptile bidet and just corner the market and make a fortune. But that's not an official question. The official question is, you're the only place still that I've seen that sells underwater aquatic isopods. And I'm deeply curious about those, but I don't have anything set up that would require them or even house them at the moment. Do they serve the same function as their terrestrial brethren?
Yeah. So I keep the freshwater isopods, and they do. They're still decomposers. They break down the waste. I don't actually keep any other aquatics because I kill fish, so I don't keep them. But I know people that use them in aquariums. It sounds like they work really well in the live planted aquariums where they've got a lot of places to hide, because in aquariums with fish and stuff, they're a lot more likely to get eaten than even the terrestrial isopods. But
what's the size like?
They're pretty small. They're smaller than most of the terrestrial ones. Not like significantly smaller, but a little bit smaller.
Okay. Like around a cubaris type of a.
Yeah, maybe marina sized.
Okay, that's pretty tiny. We saw those guys.
For the audience, marina were the last ones that Josh had on camera. So for an idea of size, yeah.
That's these guys. Oh. I have them under the camera, I swear. That's these guys that were there. So if you can see the dime underneath, like they're a little bit above the dime. You could probably fit 5 of them on there easily. 10. Never mind. Changed my mind. And there's actually springtails in here too. That's the tiny white dots that are running around. For those that haven't seen those yet.
Springtail love yet. So, we're kind of talking about isopods, but springtails are super, super important if you're setting up a bioactive, because they eat mold. And that is a lot of times, when I talk to people about setting up a bioactive, that is the turning point for them, because, they've got something that needs real high humidity. So it's growing mold all the time. So, or they have fungus gnats, and I'm sure anybody who keeps isopods knows the pain of fungus gnats. And springtails can really help with that, because they also eat the mold and fungus that the fungus gnats eat, and so they outcompete them. Aquatic isopods would be good in freshwater tanks, at least the ones that I keep, because they are freshwater isopods. I don't know if there's saltwater isopods readily available in the hobby.
Those are the ones that get monstrous. I think saltwater, you're better off with like a refugium type of setup if you're going to go bioactive, but that's kind of not our cup of tea tonight. I do want to get into that on another call. With another, if in the future with another guest, I want to get into refugiums and how they do for saltwater setups. So, good question though. I feel like I know that name.
I would like to apologize. I did say the F word. I said fungus gnats. I'm really sorry, guys. It's my bad.
I was like, how'd that get past the censor? What happened? We talked about swearing. I think I know this menu person. I don't know who it is though. I recognize the call sign. I think Claire, you're up.
I think I'm up. So changing topics a little bit. I know you do a ton of shows. So do you have any advice for the people who are visiting your booth or going to shows in general if they're not in your area?
Yeah, sure. So, if you're going to a show, whether you're coming to see me or you're going to see, somebody local in your area, bring your questions. That's why we're there. you could go online and you could buy stuff, but you're not going to get the knowledge, as easily as you can when somebody's standing right there in front of you. So definitely bring your questions, come talk to me at a show, especially if you come later in the day. Usually, the mornings were pretty swamped, but if you come later in the day, there's usually quite a bit of time to talk. Also, just from a logistical standpoint, if you are specifically coming to see Pet Pedes and Pods at a show, and you know what you want ahead of time, we do take pre-orders, and I do recommend doing that because we tend to sell out of a lot of stuff early on in the morning.
Did that kid the other day at your show get anything for his $1?
He didn't. He
didn't try to bargain or anything.
No.
Rookie move. So for those who don't know, somebody came up to a child. How old was this child?
Oh, he was like, I don't know, 6, maybe.
So 6 years old, he came up with $1 and wanted something.
I had some orchids on the table, and he comes up and he's like, "Is this $1?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Oh, where's all the free stuff?" And then he walked away.
He came to a reptile show for swag. That's awesome.
Yes.
That where's all the free stuff? Go ask your mom. She knows.
Yes. And so I'm just looking at the chat and answering questions. We do have a schedule for the shows. It's up on the website. We usually have the schedule up about a month in advance, but we do a lot of the same shows in Ohio.
To be fair, on your new site, I couldn't get the schedule to go away. I couldn't figure out how to get it to minimize for a long time, and it was very frustrating. But
there's a little dismiss button on that. But yeah, there is a page that also shows like all the upcoming shows. So like right now, I think it's got all of March up there.
Yeah, it was totally user error.
This week, so I had a website before, but this week we just launched like a real website, which is really exciting. It lets you do ordering through it. It won't let you order something if you're not legally allowed to order something, which was the big hurdle that I had to get past. So you can actually buy stuff through the website instead of me having to ask 20 questions. So it's pretty exciting.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Because you offer other things besides isopods. So for those of you that don't know, she has. And I wish I had some to show off today. I wanted to show ornate harvestmen, but mine, sadly, I don't know why, but they didn't make it through molts or something. They're no longer with us. But they're these really cool daddy long legs, basically for the layman.
Yeah, they're really neat. We've got the harvestmen. I've also got, I've had one clutch of Regal jumping spiders that I'm working on right now. They're not big enough yet, but they'll be available when they get there. Upcoming species, that is a great question. I do actually have an entire section on the website of breeding project highlights, highlighting some of the things that I have that I'm working with that are not necessarily available as of yet, but you can look at them because I do have some pretty rare species that I'm excited to be working with. Green lasers, green spots, really cool stuff.
I don't have any of those to show off, guys. I'm sorry. I just got expensive pods for the first time, and I had to do a shipping container worth of my cheapo isopods to trade. But we'll feature those at another time. I think that's it for the main questions. So, Claire, I had the top 2. Do you want to take this one, and then you'll close out then?
Sure. So our 5 questions that we're asking to everybody. The first one, Rachel, when did you get serious about the hobby?
So I started Pet Pedes and Pods in 2019. I'd been doing Bioactive a bit for my own animals before that. I started keeping actually Millipedes first, and then I really started getting into isopods after that. But I've been keeping reptiles and amphibians since I was like 5 or 6 years old. So in terms of being in just the general hobby, it's been most of my life.
That's awesome. There's some weird, I'm getting weird delay here too. This is weird tonight. What was the next one then? That's awesome. I think we've all been keepers. Everybody in this channel now has been a keeper of something or had a shoebox with a garter snake under their bed or whatever, some poor animal just doomed from the beginning. But I think it's great that everybody's adults now and learned from their mistakes and never wanted to do that. Some poor creature. Yeah.
Well, because, when we were kids, we didn't have the resources that were available now, not like the internet was there. You could find and look up stuff, maybe you could go to the library and find one book maybe, but even then it was, probably terrible information. So I think it's really cool how much the hobby has progressed in that amount of time and just how much information is available.
Yeah, like I can't tell you how many toads I dehydrated as a kid on accident. Like not on purpose, but just it happens because you're a kid. I punched holes in the lid. I thought that was all I needed, that and a handful of grass, and you're good. So next one, do you have, oh, whoops, sorry. What do you think is the most rewarding part of your hobby?
Of my hobby.
You can pick a different hobby. It doesn't matter. Whatever hobby you want.
Well, you know, like I said, the great thing about my hobby is it's all the hobbies. Well, you know, I really am. I'm a hobbyist first, so I really enjoy, you know, keeping all of the animals that I keep. You know, I really got into this because I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy the creativity that comes with setting up a terrarium or a vivarium because it is very much an artistic endeavor as opposed to just, you know, putting something together. And I really enjoy the main animals that go into it. I enjoy all the isopods and springtails and, you know, all the other invertebrates that go along with it. So it's really nice. It's a nice combination of things.
Yeah. Menu, I think we're all hobbyist entomologists in this channel. I don't know anybody that's a professional. We have some people that are close. They're working on it, but they're not there yet. As far as I know, I may be surprised, but as far as I know, everybody's a hobbyist.
Yes, I am definitely a hobbyist. I am an electrical engineer. I do automation systems for HVAC systems for a living. So no overlap there.
None. Absolutely none. Fantastic.
All right. So do you have any pro tips for people just starting out?
Definitely keep in mind that there are a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of good groups. If you're here, you're probably through one of those good groups. You know, just do some research, but don't get too overwhelmed because there is a lot of information. And the nice thing about, you know, the hobbies in general, whether you want to keep invertebrates or whether you want to get a bioactive setup is, you know, it's not the end of the world if it goes wrong the first time you try it. So, you know, give it a try, see how it goes. You're probably going to enjoy it. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Claire?
I think so.
Sure.
Awesome. Who or what got you started in the hobby? Like even as a kid, like was there an adult that or older cousin or something? I don't know. The guy you like fired up.
Definitely my parents. My mom's allergic to everything. So it was kind of keeping reptiles and amphibians like by default because we couldn't have any furry animals. So yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to get it started. Yeah. Hypoallergenic. So and then
I'm a huge animal lover. So yeah.
Oh, Wally's coming in hot with a question here. What's the biggest mistake people make when setting up Bioactive?
So, you know, if you're going to do like a permanent display build, obviously we talked about kind of just doing the real basic bioactives, but you have to set up your substrate layering, right? And the substrate layering is when you have, you know, your drainage layer, your screen separator, your substrate, and your leaf litter. So you got to do that right. And I also really recommend putting some sort of drain into your drainage layer. I usually just put, for the smaller ones, you know, put some tubing in there that you can get another tube in and siphon out if you need to, just so you don't get completely waterlogged in there. But definitely set it up right. You know, use the right supplies. Use expanded clay balls in your drainage layer. I've had a lot of people tell me, oh my gosh, I tried with this gravel and now I can't move this enclosure. So, you know, using the right things makes it a lot easier. First of all, it's going to work better. And second of all, you can actually move the enclosure later, you know, when you need to. So yeah, definitely set it up right. And it'll take good care of you and your animal if you get it done right.
Well, because it's almost like a permanent basis then at that point. Like there's some maintenance you have to do, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, my crested gecko enclosure that I've had going for quite some time, I mean, I trim the plants every now and then if they get too big, and I spray it when I need to spray her, and that's about it. It's super easy. And then sometimes clean the glass when she refuses to poop in the dirt and poops on the glass.
I feel like that's their strong point is pooping on the glass.
Yes.
Big fans of that. Or way up high where there's no chance that anything's going to get at it.
I'm also looking with the chat. That is a really good point. If you can get your cleanup crew established in your bioactive setup ahead of time, like at least a month, but longer is better. It's going to go a lot better. Still keep a separate side culture of both those things just in case something happens. But yeah, the longer you can let it establish, the better. Especially if you're doing something live planted with your plants too, because you definitely want to give them time to get that root structure in. You don't want to put something in and plant it and then have your gecko like jump on it and tear it up by the roots. So give everything time to settle in and establish.
I didn't even think of that, where they just tip them over because they're not established at all. It's just a plug, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, we have one more question. Officially.
We do. Officially. Unofficially, maybe start typing yours now so we can have it when Rachel's done answering this one.
Yeah, we're trying to save Q&A for the end of the calls, like now. So if you guys want to start, we'll ask this last one. You guys can throw up some questions that you have still.
Yeah. All right. So, Rachel, do you have any special background related to the hobby?
I don't. As I said, I am an electrical engineer, so a lot of sciences, but it's all, physics and math based. So yeah, other than being a hobbyist for most of my life, no, that's it.
That's awesome. Okay, so we're already getting questions. That's good. I didn't get to ask about the ducks. I'll ask later.
Well, we'll talk about the ducks. Yeah, we'll talk about the ducks. I think we have time still. So to siphon water out of the bioactive setup, some people, you can actually put, actual drains in, but that involves drilling through the glass, which can be really scary. And I wouldn't, I'm sorry, I'm looking at chat and I'm going to cover the questions. I wouldn't really recommend that unless you know what you're doing. But you can put, and I don't have it written down what the sizes are, but basically you can get a piece of tubing, anchor it down into your substrate, and then you just get another piece of tubing that then you can insert down into that tube, and then you can siphon it out. I mean, you could use a jerky baster or, anything like that just to get the water siphoned out if you needed to. I've actually never needed to do that, but I think it's good to have it just in case things get out of control.
That's a great pro tip. Like, I never even thought of that. I'm setting up a vivarium now for ants, and I'm going to have a water layer in the bottom, and that's going to be good to... Good question. Oh, sorry, this isn't for you. This is for me again, but mostly it's me. My wife helped today, so because I'm going to be here on this chat. So thanks, Grady. Good to have you back, buddy.
So excellent.
Now you have other critters too, like ducks and sheep. No, goats. Goats.
Yes. So my husband and I, we have 10 acres out in the country, and we just have, it's a hobby farm. So we have Nigerian dwarf goats, we have 4 boys, an alpaca. We've got 4 Indian runner ducks, and we recently got Louis the goose because we were having an issue with the hawks, and we like to let our ducks go out and run around without being eaten. So we got Louis the goose, and his job is to be the muzzle for the ducks, and he's doing a good job so far. And then the alpaca, so the alpaca is like the ground threat division. So he keeps an eye on coyotes and stuff like that. And then the goose is the aerial threat division, and he keeps an eye on hawks and suspicious looking planes and helicopters and hot air balloons.
So the alpaca chases off coyotes, like they literally.
Oh yeah. So alpacas, when they see something that is a threat, they will stand their ground. They will make themselves look very big and scary, and they will scream in this very terrifying, weird scream, and then like stomp and snort. Isopods for a mossarium. So I would probably go with something that is not super veggie driven. But then my other question would be, is it a closed mossarium or not? A lot of times, if it's a closed terrarium, you're just going to want to use springtails because if you're not going to open it a lot, you're not going to be able to get supplemental food in there for them. So I would maybe just stick with springtails for something like that.
What about if it's open?
If it's open, I would stay away from the armadillo dams. See, you're making me do the Latin now, and I'm going to say it all wrong. I would stay away from those guys. They're going to not. I don't know. I would maybe go with some of the like the scaper morphs or something. for some interest, but they're probably going to eat it too. It depends on how much you like your moss, really.
Well, because they just get bored and start going to town. Right?
Yeah. If it's going to be closed, I would definitely just go with springtails.
Yeah, and then you'll know if you need to pop it open for some oxygen because they'll just all pass out.
Well,
they're the best guys at playing dead.
Yeah, depending on how you do your closed terrarium, you can keep springtails in there without ever having to open it, because depending on what kind of plants you have in there, you'll get actually oxygen production in there.
They'll cycle through. They don't need a lot, but I just saved someone's entire culture because they were like, "Oh, these guys are dead," and I was like, "Whoa, wait, just wait a day, just give them time," and they all woke up basically. So, and that's just from stuff that I've seen. It hasn't happened to me yet, but I expect it to. Walking sticks, the stick insects, are the king of playing dead as far as I'm concerned. I was positive this thing was dead, and I just left it in there for the rubber duckies to get to, and then there were 3 again. So somehow there were 3 walking around.
That's pretty cool.
Dwarf whites, is that in reference to the closed setup? Is that what you're asking there, Grady?
Or just in general? Dwarf whites are great for bioactives. They are small, they burrow. If you're worried about your cleanup crew getting eaten, those are usually a good choice.
And you can kind of combine those in with other isopods too, right? They don't really outcompete.
I wouldn't combine them. Yeah, I wouldn't put them in, like, if you're just keeping an isopod culture, I wouldn't combine them because they can outcompete. But in like a bioactive setup, it's usually okay.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. There's so many different species, it's crazy. So, and then they all have different niches. It's just that's what I think is awesome about the hobby. Comparing it to Pokemon is not a small thing. Like, that's legitimately what we do. Yeah,
absolutely.
Until I get that one that like evolves to the roach size, you know. Where am I on my camera? I still hate this.
You mean the ones that are like this size?
Yes. Where is he? Yeah. Oh, he's hanging on his hook. Sorry. Jufer's hanging on his hook. I'll get him next week.
I make them. They're the size of the deep sea ones. Commissions are closed right now, but hit me up on my craft page.
That's really neat.
See. They're not cheap, but they're super high quality. I don't know how much extra it is to get one as a puppet, but I recommend it. That's really all the questions. We're like super early today.
There is a question I'm going to answer, which is, do you personally have any cubars that you find to be visible and surface active? I keep the 5-pun tigers, which are theoretically a locality of the red tigers. Those guys are super active. They are out like all the time. That's probably the ones I actually see. And the white duckies are actually fairly active as well. Not the rubber duckies, though. You gotta go hunt for those guys.
I just saw one of mine for the first time since I got them, and I was super excited. So that the enclosure I put them in kind of is working for me. So they're in a thing where they're kind of up against the glass, all the substrate. So they have limited space, really, to hide. So, because I was like, no, you cost me too much. Bet you they were a gift. But still, I want to see them.
Yep. Yeah, I would say the 5-pun or the red tigers, nice active species you'll actually see. And they reproduce pretty quickly too, so you get a good colony going. Yeah, white duckies are really positive. Yeah.
That's awesome. I keep waiting for the delay. Go ahead. Sorry.
I've got another question for you, Rachel, because we've talked a lot about pods. Let's talk about pedes for a minute. Good pedes for beginners, active pedes. What's the best millipede?
Well, the best millipede is going to depend on what your criteria is. The cool thing about the millipedes is they come in like all different shapes and sizes and colors, and there's a lot of different kinds. And then there's ones that are better for beginners, and there's ones that are better for advanced keepers. If you're just looking out to start with millipedes, the bumblebee millipedes are really nice. They're not seasonal breeders, so you can actually get a colony going pretty easily. The Florida ivories, scarlets, any of the native, like the Americanus or the Smoky Oaks, are all good beginner millipedes. And they're fairly decent size. The scarlets are kind of small. But otherwise, they are good for beginners. Millipedes do recommend mostly for pets. Keeping them in a bioactive setup is really difficult to keep it good for the millipedes because they are really dependent on the substrate for nutrition. So that's something that I usually just recommend you keep them separately as pets.
Yeah.
Cool.
There was a museum I got to visit back when I was doing environmental education that had a couple of the native bugs from southern Nevada, actually. But they had the American giants. They let us handle them. It was so cool letting them crawl all over. So I've kind of wanted millipedes since then. So I may have to slip into the DMs and pick your brain a little bit more.
Sure, yeah, anytime.
They are so cool.
Millipedes they are not as forgiving as isopods. If it's something you're interested in, I would suggest maybe starting with isopods first, and making sure you can keep those guys alive, and then go into millipedes from there. Just because they are super slow growing, and so like I have millipedes and I captive breed all my millipedes, and it can take 3 years for your millipedes to get to the point where they're going to reproduce, so it can take a really long time to get a colony going up them. And plus, because they are so dependent on their substrate for nutrition, if something's a little bit off, you can have a huge die-off in a colony as well. Giant are really cool, but they do not do well in captivity. I know there's a couple that people have had okay luck with over here, but like the truly giant pill millipedes, recommend just appreciating these on the internet.
Yeah, we still don't know what they need that they're not getting here.
Right.
So there's something in the soil or their substrate, whatever you want to call it. I can't call it substrate, really. It's not an enclosure, but we just don't have it. So they just starve to death. It's horrible. And it takes, months, basically, for them to starve to death?
Yeah, it's a very long, slow, presumably painful death. So
not cool. But they do look awesome. They do. They
do look really, really awesome.
I'm jealous of the folks over there that could probably keep them. So,
or the folks who get to go out hiking in their native range and find them in the wild.
Yeah, just appreciate them where they are, right? You don't need to take them home. I do, but you might not. So, I'm not saying if I found some, I definitely would bring them home with 2 shovels full of whatever they were standing on.
At least 2 shovels full, because you'll have to find probably a geology professor to help you run some tests to see what's actually in their native soil.
Send some of the soil to Morris and see what his breakdown is.
Sure.
That's perfect. Send it over to, I can never think of the name of his.
Permian Exotics.
Permian. I was going to say Pangean, and that's totally not it.
Something else.
Totally something else. Ching is here. My sweetie. Shows up an hour in. Perfect timing. That was bad. Perfect timing. What else? I don't know that I have any more questions.
Well, we can talk about
so
that
much
until other people have questions. I mean, that's fine with me.
That's fine. Ducks are great.
So we have the Indian water ducks. They're super great. They're like very upright, and they like run with their little long legs and their very upright bodies, and they look just ridiculous. We have Bubbles, who's the oldest, and then we have 3 that are this year's babies. And Bubbles is pretty smart, and this year's babies are not. They're not smart at all. Very dumb. It was part of the reason why we had to get a goose. So doing a good job keeping an eye on keeping him.
And alive. you got Louis as an adult, right? So we
did, yeah. He's 2 years old. Yeah, we decided. I think it was the day after Thanksgiving. I went on the internet and decided that was what we needed to watch after the girls. And so I told my husband, I said, I think we need to get a goose. And he said, okay. And so then I went on the internet and I said, hello, would anybody like to give me their goose? And we picked him up that afternoon. I don't even know how that's possible. The ducks are quite often in a row. It is extremely easy to get ducks in a row. They like to follow in a line, like somebody is the leader and then everybody else follows. Yes, the goose is a guard goose. He is very good at his job. We cannot currently let the dog out in the yard with him because he thinks that the dog is no good, and he may have. So
Just goes after the dog.
yes. And she's just super confused because she's like best friends with the ducks. So she doesn't understand why she's not allowed to go near them anymore. So it's been like, the weather has been terrible. So when it warms up a little bit and is less muddy, we're going to get them reintegrated and it'll be okay. But
That's so funny.
yes.
Watching him strut around on some of the videos you had where he's just like looking around like, who wants some of this? Nobody wants this. He's all puffed up.
When we let them out in the morning, Louis has a routine where he just goes out and screams at the top of his lungs for about 5 straight minutes to let everybody know that he's there. And we don't currently have any neighbors, and I think that's probably a good thing.
That's why I can't have a rooster. I live in town. We're allowed like 6 chickens, I guess, but no rooster. Or he's got to go, which is
There's a rooster somewhere on our street, and I can tell you right now the goose is way quieter than the rooster. The rooster is really loud.
And they're doing the same thing. They're just telling everybody where they're at.
Yep.
So, oh, that's funny. That is funny.
Do you have any other questions? We just want to talk about geese and ducks and goats and alpacas.
Okay. We're not really going to get that. Do you ever throw any of the little turds in for your isopods, for your alpacas and your goats?
I don't. And that is because we do routinely worm them, which would be bad for the invertebrates. So.
Fair. See, that's good thinking. Somebody very close to us gave their isopods shed skin from a mite treatment at the snakes. Had a mite treatment and it caused some severe die-off for them. And I think that's just one of those things you don't think about. You don't think about that cross-contamination a lot. So it's good that your mind is there.
Yeah.
I think they'd totally be down though, right? The isopods are totally.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's not like goose poop smells.
In the poop outside all the time. I just don't give it to mine.
Okay. Yeah, the wild ones, they're hardy. They'll be fine. They'll be all right. They won't have worms.
Anyway.
Yeah, they won't have worms. That's all.
And I'm sure like most of the time it's okay, but it's just something I don't want to risk.
Right?
Yeah, certainly not with like green spots and green lasers and all the really cool high-end stuff.
Yeah.
That's awesome that you get to work with that level of isopod. Like I'm just getting into the fancy stuff now. I was kind of a mid-range guy until very recently. So excited to see those guys take off too. Pack chongs, white pandas, not the fully gray pandas that you've got there.
They're just the most boring morph ever. I have, we were talking about this before the stream, but I have pandas that just don't have the white part in the middle. And it's the most boring morph ever. But I've got a whole little colony of them going because I just keep pulling them out of pandas. Yay.
How disappointing. How disappointing is that? Like, and they're gray. They're that like shitty gray. Sorry, I swore, but
it's okay. I already said fungus gnats earlier. So
you did. I blame you.
Well, the way pandas breed and the way the prices are starting to come down on them, maybe brown pandas will be the next big thing for bioactive cleanup crews and humid enclosures.
Hey, I feel like that's what I'm going to be using mine for. So
they're that brown color that blends in with leaf litter and substrate. They're less likely to get eaten.
Yeah. They breed real well and they like it wet. So it sounds good to me.
Now, are your pandas out a lot, or is it one of those things where you just get so many that they don't have a choice? No.
Yeah, that's more where it is. I always have to dig for them.
Okay, I've heard they're a little more out and about, but I have not had that.
I would say they're more out and about than like the rubber duckies, but that is a very low bar.
Yeah, that's. I'm hoping my setup works out for me, but that's what I'm never gonna see them. But whatever.
I just go and flip things over and tell them how cute they are, and then put them back. I mean, that's pretty much what I do.
That's pandas. I can usually count on 1 or 2 being on the bottom of my cork, and I still have, they're breeding, but they're still a pretty small colony. So I only see the 1 or 2 that's on the bottom of the cork when I check them.
So crazy. And we just
chocolate pandas. I've been calling them brown bears. Brown bears.
I like that.
Are they more brown then?
What's written on my label is weird pandas, but that's not the, official name. That's just what I wrote on my label.
We need the Latin. What's the Latin for that, Claire?
They are Cubaris Spa Panda King. Spa for species.
Spa.
Spa.
No, the brown
You just
bear.
make up some fancy sound in Latin for the brown bears.
I don't speak Latin.
Claire.
I know
You
some
speak
species
something,
names.
Make
I
it up
don't.
and say it in a convincing fashion. We'll believe you.
So, Josh, write that down and we'll ask Russ in a couple of weeks. He speaks Italian. I speak Arabic and German. I'm outside the Romance languages. I can't come up with anything that'll sound Latin enough for you.
We will ask Russ. That's awesome. We're going to have Russ on from Aquarimax. Very excited for that. Next week is Wally Kern of Supreme Gecko, who was here for a little bit at least. That should be a fun one too. We're going to talk about geckos. So not everything is about the bugs, right?
We're gonna have to send
Gotta
Wally a
ask Russ.
picture of mine. Mine's supposed to be a girl, but I'm pretty sure she's a boy. My gecko. That's okay. I'm not gonna breed her, so it's fine.
It's fine. I thought mine was a colorful female, and then it turns out he was just a juvenile, but he knew his name, so we shortened his name.
Our box turtle, his name's Ramon. We think he's about 30, and he is definitely a girl. But he's been Ramon for a very long time, so I'm not gonna change it.
I mean, it could be Ramona, right? That's easy. That's easy.
Yeah. But he's just like, he's got like this like grumpy old man face because he's a turtle. It's just go with
If
it.
the name fits, does it matter? I mean, honestly,
Exactly.
my wizard is named Daenerys, and Game of Thrones is no longer relevant. So does it matter that he's a boy? And we call him
No.
D anyway.
Wally's not dead yet, so that's good.
He's not dead yet. All right. I never check my RDs. What's an RD?
His rubber duckies, I'm assuming?
Rubber duckies. Okay. All right. See, I'm glad I had an engineer here to think the weird another Monty's reference. Oh yeah. All right. Sorry, that one was
But
that
not
was
dead.
a little yeah. He's always referencing Monty Python. The same movie too, apparently, but that's okay. That's the one everybody's seen.
Okay, thanks, Wally. I'll send you a picture of her.
Of the brown
No,
pandas.
the gecko. That I'm pretty sure is a boy.
Oh, gotcha.
The gecko. The brown pandas could end up in with the gecko at some point. We don't
That
know.
is
Depends on the bioactive.
That is a truth fact. Yeah, she gets the random isopods sometimes, as does the box turtle. Box turtle gets overflow because he eats them.
Yeah. What's in with your crested Nell?
She's actually got zebras, primarily. I was able to
Okay.
get them established in there, despite the fact that they really like walking around in front of her face. But I actually do have zebras in there with her. Right now, the box turtle, he has springtails, powder oranges, and earthworms because he really likes digging up the earthworms for enrichment. I have to add them in all the time, though, because he eats them.
I made the mistake of adding some to my original substrate bin, and now I might take up fishing this year because I have hundreds and hundreds of worms in my old substrate bin. I don't even use it anymore. So it's just powders in there now, like random. It's turning to wild types because it's just all the random. And then worms. Yeah, it's like 40 gallons
There's
of
worse.
worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to separate their castings and enhance all my other substrates. So they're everywhere. That's one of the things. That and house millipedes, people were saying, or what it's called, garden. You know,
Greenhouse
little,
millipedes?
yeah, little crappy millipedes. I've got them everywhere now. And those garbage little centipedes have infiltrated most of my bins now. So those little orange ones,
Yeah.
they're so fast. Ugh. And I told everybody, I used to make my sister look for the bugs underneath stuff. I would lift the log and be like, grab it, because I wouldn't touch the bug. Whatever it was. But now I'm like going in right after these stupid centipedes that normally would terrify me. I'm just like, no, die. You have to die.
Yeah, centipedes are bad. Bad to having with your isopods or your millipedes.
Yeah, I'm sure they prey. There's enough springtails in there for them to eat. Hopefully, they're easier prey than mankai. But mankai are the babies, by the way. We never explained that last week, and I feel bad. There's all kinds of terminology.
I call them babies, typically.
There you
They're
go.
technically only mankai until the first or second molt when they get the missing part of their body, and then they're juveniles, I guess.
Yeah, that's literally what it means, right?
They're very new, fresh babies, and then they turn into slightly bigger babies.
Where you can actually see them. Yeah. Now, do you say Bebes like the guy from the True Facts videos on YouTube?
Oh,
Because that's
yeah,
how it's written. That's how it's written in my book. Like Bebes seen today. So
That's how the isopod do.
yeah, that's how they do.
That
Ask
is how
Ashley.
the isopod do.
They hold on for 3 days straight trying to get some. That's persistence. Or it's a crime. I haven't decided yet. In human society, that's a crime. Don't hold on to a woman for 3 days. If she said no right away, don't do it. Or a man, just anyone. Don't hold on to anyone for 3 days, even if they said yes. Yeah, sorry. I want to make sure I make that clear. What was the thing I wanted to talk about? Something's in the news, Florida. I wanted to mention it today because I guess it's not getting any traction. So our 5 viewers will know.
If you're not a member of US ARC, you should join US ARC.
There you go.
Fight for reptile keepers in the United States, and there are some very restrictive laws that are being passed that are no good for the hobby. So support US ARC.
Now, on the flip side, would you say that some of those laws are like in Florida, like a state like Florida, it's not that big a deal? Like it's to their benefit to have those laws in place?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert, but
just in your opinion.
In my opinion, it seems like the laws that are being passed really punish the responsible reptile keepers and are probably going to end up with more things being released in the wild, which is exactly the opposite of what they're trying to do, because they're not really giving people any reason to keep their animals. So.
That's true, because we already put them, like zoos can only take so many, or universities or whatever.
Yeah, you're basically in a situation where people either keep their animals illegally, they release them, or they get euthanized, and none of those are good options. So.
No, those aren't good options. I guess the illegal thing, whatever, but I don't know. I've never been in a situation where I kept something illegal. So, yeah, I support the US ARC. I'm going to, because I think it's a good deal.
It's like $40 for an individual membership for the year, or you can give them however much you want, but it's not a lot to support them. And as Wally is pointing out in the comments, it's not going to stop with Florida. These things are being driven by organizations like PETA, which are not good organizations. And
yeah, ironically, PETA sucks
in general, but they're starting with reptiles. So. Support US ARC. Pay attention.
And US ARC does work nationwide. They've got chapters, I think, in most states. I don't think we have anybody particularly local to me, but we do have a dude on our local group that keeps up on all of the county and local laws. And US ARC seems to be more at the state and national level, but they're keeping an eye on things all over.
That's good. I feel like county laws are you should check those out. But the state laws are so, doesn't Wisconsin has some pretty serious laws too, which is weird to me because things can only live out there 5 months a year if they're not indigenous.
Well, next week when Wally's on, we can have him tell us all about it.
We will. He's saying Minnesota is having big time laws come down. And again, what do they have 2 months that are winter?
Right.
What's going to survive? Bears? If you import more bears?
Well, so I live in Ohio, and we used to have no exotic animal laws here. And then a few years back, there was a really big deal down in the southern part of the state. A bunch of wild animals got loose. It was real bad. And then we got exotic animal laws that restrict pythons over a certain length and turtles and tortoises under 4 inches. And it doesn't make any sense. It's nothing that's actually beneficial. It's nothing that's helping, benefiting the animals or people in any way. It's just laws being made by people who don't really understand what they're doing.
And I've got relatives in Ohio, so Rachel, at some point I'll probably see you at a show when I'm out visiting them. But as I recall, the wild animals that got loose, it was big cats. It was zoo animals.
Oh, yeah. It was zoo animals. Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with reptiles. But
I think we actually referenced that case in Tiger King, guys. It was not, somebody keeping pythons at home and the top got off. It was a much bigger deal with much more serious animals.
Yeah, didn't he let loose his whole zoo and then kill himself? And then
something like that.
That's just such a tragedy. They had to euthanize most of the animals. I use that term generously. Just horrible what happened there. And how do you not know your neighbor has lions? Yeah. On that note, hey guys, have a great night.
On that note, ducks are awesome. We really like ducks. We like ducks, the feathery kind and the isopod kind. They're super fun.
At least you'll see the ones that are the real ducks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So check out Rachel's new website at petpedesandpods.com.
Petpedesandpods.com, please do. Yeah, we just launched that this week, new and improved. It's really exciting. It definitely works. I've had some orders come through, so it's very exciting. Very exciting.
That's good.
And if
if
you guys ever need anything, I'm in the Facebook groups. I'm on Instagram. If you have questions, come and ask them. I really enjoy talking about stuff. So if you ever need anything, let me know.
You're one of the first people to give me serious advice about keeping things. So, yeah, that's good. Rachel's a really good resource. Knows her stuff and is generous with information. So reach out. That's all I've got. Like I said, next week we're gonna have Wally Kern from Supreme Gecko and Supreme Isopod. Really, the website I think is just supremegecko.com, right?
I think so.
I don't know if the other one gets you there. There he goes.
Let's put it in the chat.
Yeah, we'll put it up. But we're going to talk to Wally about geckos, so bring your gecko questions. But that's all we've got. That's it.
That's it. Make
We're
sure
gonna
you
go.
like, comment, subscribe, click the bell. Oh, and guys, share. Get more people to come and watch us. Share the information. Rachel's told us a great wealth of information about bioactivity tonight. So, if you know anybody who's thinking about keeping and needs to do some research, this might be a good call to set them up with. So, while you're liking, commenting, and subscribing and clicking the bell, go ahead and share it with someone.
I feel like we put up some good information tonight, not just jokes. So that's good. It wasn't just laughs. We got those too.
If you want more jokes, you need to come over to the Isobuddies chat room. We got to get off of here so we can go get our weekly live chat going.
Yeah, we've got to go get our week. So I don't have the link for that though. Let me see. Let me grab a link. If you have any more to talk about, Rachel.
No, I think I'm good. If you guys don't have any other
I know
questions.
we got you up past your bedtime, so.
It is. It's late.
Thank you so much for staying up late for us, Rachel.
Thanks, guys.
We hope you had as much fun as we did. There we go. All right. There's the chat. There we go. That's where it'll be anyway. So thanks again, Rachel. Everything was great. Thank you for being our first guest. Thank you for agreeing to do this and put yourself through this. We really appreciate it. So
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah. I mean, you've been a friend of the show before there was a show. So, so I appreciate it. Thank you again. All right. Have a great night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
We'll see the rest of you real soon. Okay. Or some of you real soon in the chat, taking care of the pods. All right. And we're out.